My name is Lisa Martin. I am the mother of a child with special needs. He has Fragile X syndrome. In many respects, he has been my teacher. He has made me be a more caring, compassionate, better human being. What we have learned together on our journey, I have realised the difficulties and challenges that parents of special needs children face are wide and varied. During my years of facilitating courses for parents and professionals, I have met some wonderful people who have shared with me their stories of great joy and sadness, who have experienced the good, the bad and the ugly of all aspects of life bringing up their special children. I am passionate about empowering parents who are dedicated in helping their children with additional needs. You're invited to my podcast. I will be talking about all things in our special world of disability and additional needs. I will be interviewing other parents of children with special needs, as well as professionals and people in the community who are offering services that help. Sometimes these podcasts might touch an emotional nerve and upset you. Other times they might fill you with joy and empower you. I don't mean to make you angry or upset, but we need to get a wider audience listening and talking about disability. Only when this happens, I believe disability won't be feared as it is today. So, hello ladies, welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. This is the second attempt at doing an interview with you, so I'm pleased to have you back. I'd like to introduce Dr. Kat Ellis, hello.
Hi.
And Malwina Jinish.
Hello.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. So Dr. Kat has been doing research and we've seen the difference between Fragile X syndrome, autism, and something that I hadn't heard about called Cornelia de Lange. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. So tell me about research. Why is research really important?
Do you want to have a go, Malvina? Throw you in the deep end? Maybe you go first, then I'll... Sure. Well, I've been in the research game for how many years or so, and the whole point of research is to try and find out new things, and in particular with the groups that we work with, try and understand what the world is like for them and their strengths and their difficulties, and how we might be able to help, particularly with their difficulties as well. So, and I think research is really important for the syndrome groups in particular, because when we do this research and we go to conferences and we speak to health professionals and other researchers and we publish, it raises awareness. And I think that's particularly, so we do work in rare genetic syndromes and also in autism. And I think, especially for the rarer groups, it's really important to keep that profile up and to keep that in the minds within the research community and also the healthcare community as well. So as much as it is finding out new things, if we keep up that publication and keep it in the sort of eye, then that sort of helps parents a little bit more if you can speak to professionals who might not know about it, and that sort of thing. So I think that's, from my angle, why I think it's important.
Do you think that a lot of children get misdiagnosed, when there is a genetic syndrome, especially when it's rare? Are they getting misdiagnosed with other things, maybe?
It probably depends on the syndrome, I think. I can only speak from what parents have told me. I know that, especially with some of the groups that we work with, people think autism first. And I suppose it's probably mums like you, Lisa, who are the best at sort of giving those experiences. I don't know if that's something that you've experienced.
Well, I know that when I was trying to figure out what was going on with my child Iggy, we just automatically thought autism as well. So it actually took me 2 years to get a diagnosis of Fragile X syndrome, which was the correct diagnosis. And we were told that he hasn't got autism, so it was a bit bittersweet. And you kind of think, well, oh, brilliant, he hasn't got autism. But I was, well, he's got something. But we just got sent off, and we were told to come back and have another assessment of autism, because maybe he was too young to figure out that he had autism then. So we went back the second time, and then the paediatrician, we were really lucky to have this new straight out of med school paediatrician, which was really lucky for us, because he'd been studying the genetic system, and even though Iggy hasn't got the facial differences that Fragile X children can have, which was probably why it was difficult to spot. So I do get that. He'd just been studying about Fragile X syndrome, so he was like, maybe. And that's how we got the diagnosis.
That's the importance of keeping the profile up.
Exactly, yeah. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, that seems to be my impression. And I think, I mean, there has been talk about, you know, whether would it be useful for parents to just have like an automatic screening, and I think there's been some research actually about parents' acceptance of that, how they feel about it as well, because you know, I imagine for different parents it's probably different in what they do and don't want to know. But I think, you know, I think as research, definitely when I've spoken to families, I get a sense that it's probably quite nice to speak with someone who knows about the syndrome and knows about what your child's life is like and what to expect, because you spend so much time trying to find answers. It might be a long road to getting that diagnosis, and then when you have that diagnosis, it sort of varies on how much each health professional might know about it.
Well, I was passed on to the Fragile X Society, which have always been wonderful. But you're absolutely right that the paediatrician, he just gave me the leaflets, and I felt like it was pretty much, you've just had the most devastating news, and then you just get sent out into the wilderness, and we were talking about this earlier, where like all parents, you know, see Dr. Google, and then everything ends up being a lot worse in your head, don't you?
But then what you know, if you don't have any information, where are you going to go? And it's so important to get that information. So as researchers, as much as it's important for us to publish in those journals, it's also really important for us to translate that research for parents, and that's something that at the University of Birmingham they've made a website. I think it's called the Find website, something about, oh gosh, I'm going to rephrase it now, furthering information in neurodevelopmental disorders or something like that. I'll have to find the actual website, maybe you could put it in the notes or something, don't quote me on it.
So you said Find website, and that's to do with genetic disorders, isn't it? So furthering information developmental disorders.
I think it's neurodevelopmental disorders, but I'll go and double check that and put it in the notes. But,
definitely.
And the good thing that you know about that is that all of the information on there has been what we call peer reviewed. So someone's written that up, and then they've got another colleague in the field to basically go through it and check that it's all sound and good for research. And I think that's the most important. It's so important that you guys have accurate information.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I'll be checking that out later. For sure.
And you can give it to health professionals as well. So there's a bit for parents, and there's also like a bit for health professionals that you can direct people to. So if you've got like a good relationship with your GP or something, then rather than going through reams and reams and reams of journals.
Divided as well, because I think sometimes, I don't know, reading like scientific journals, that can be overwhelming, like for us, let alone parents that don't have a background in like science or, so I think
and it's all the language. Language. It's like learning a foreign language, isn't it?
And it's long. It's like, I don't want to read it. It's like 10-page paper. Like exactly.
And I think that's why the Fragile X Society have been really brilliant as well, because they've got lots of handouts that they've given me to give to teachers, to give to GPs. Which has been, it's easy to read. Someone's written it in a way that's the layman. You know, the parent.
And GPs don't have a lot of time either.
No,
so
exactly.
the simply you can do it, the better. And I think groups like the Fragile X Society and the rarer groups, but even in like the autism groups we work with, which is obviously a bigger group, but you know, like the National Autism Society, I think, you know, anything like that, it's really important to get the information out there. And communities, I think, do a really good job of that, and that's why, as researchers, it's important for us to work with the communities, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So how did you get into being a doctor in this field?
So it was sort of the right opportunities at the right time, as many of these things are. I feel really lucky to have happened. So I studied at the University of Birmingham. I studied psychology, and there I volunteered with adults with an intellectual disability, and it was so much fun. So much fun. Me and my friends like organised the group, and that was a bit of volunteering that we did. And then in my final year of study, I chose a final year module, which was the psychology of intellectual disability, which was run by Professor Chris Oliver, and I also did my dissertation with Chris Oliver as well. And in that there was a bit of learnt a little bit about sort of helping people with intellectual disability using sort of behaviourist approach, but then he also introduced genetic syndromes and how you might see different behaviours from different genetic syndromes, and how that can be really useful in predicting what might happen in the future and how you might be able to help these people. And I just thought it was so interesting, and I did really well in it. And I think as a researcher that's important as well, that you have a bit of a nerdy interest as well. But I think what always really struck me from that was just how family-centred the research was, and how person-centred that research was. It was not doing research for the sake of doing research. It was in order to genuinely help and understand what it's like for, you know, people with these genetic syndromes, some of which who might not talk, and there's far too little research, far too little understanding of people who can't talk. There needs to be more measured, and I think that's really important as well. And then he had PhD opportunities available, and I was like, I'll give it a shot. And luckily he gave me the opportunity, and I'm really grateful for it, because I wouldn't be here.
Didn't you say he's retiring soon as well?
He is. So there'll still be research done at Birmingham with the Richards Labs and also the Woodcock Lab. They were also PhD students, and now they're lecturers there. And we're down at UCL now with Joe, so we're down there. But there's lots of, what's great is there's a real community of researchers in genetic syndromes right across the country, in Cardiff, up, I think it's, I want to say Durham, down in Surrey, University of Surrey as well, Kent. Wow.
So they're all connected, are they? They're all on board with the same research.
We see each other in, we know each other we see each other in conferences, and connect that way. And sometimes you might collaborate. And I'm sort of at that stage now where I'm trying to sort of find where people are, and for me, because I'm definitely a people person, that collaboration and that community is really important for me, and I think that's what's kept me staying as well when we go to the like the Fragile X days, for example. It's lovely. It's honestly it's the biggest motivator.
It's so lovely that you guys come to the Fragile X conferences as well, because many of us have done the research. We've took part and helped you guys out, which in turn is helping us out as well. But then to see you again, like down the line, and then you see our children from being 4 years old to now being 9. It must be really lovely for you to see the children and the families.
It's lovely. Malvina's quite new to the game, but I'm hopefully slowly persuading her.
Definitely.
Especially when you see how lovely the families are.
It is a real sense of community. Like, it just puts, it's no longer like dry research, like inputting data in or doing analysis, but it really puts faces onto the people that we're trying to understand, trying to help. And like you said, they see that we're not as scary as sometimes might seem, and we're just we're approachable, and it's I love going to conferences. I'm so happy Kat's always bringing me along with her. And
because I think you're absolutely right, because we were saying last time people have this idea of researchers in the white coats, and with glasses on the end of their
Yeah.
nose, looking really serious.
Yeah.
And you guys aren't like that.
Yeah.
Oh, really, really good fun. And
Yeah.
We have quite a lot of fun.
Yeah.
so that's really
That's
nice.
scary. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get into this line of work?
So yeah, my research my interest is probably a bit more general than Kat. So I've graduated last year, and so generally I was really interested in kind of general neuropsychology, so understanding like cognitive profiles of both like congenital but also like acquired difficulties or illnesses, and I've kind of worked with adults in like stroke services, and then the opportunity came to work at UCL with obviously children that may have some cognitive strengths, cognitive weaknesses, and whilst hoping to specialise clinically, I think working in like a research environment is really nice to have like an understanding and grounding in then what's translated into clinical practice, and so I'm working with like clinical groups and getting really good experience, so really, really enjoying it. And I think the main thing for me is as Kat said, how like family centered the research is, and it's I really get to see what we're doing it for, I guess, when we go to visits and go to conferences and stuff. So I'm really enjoying my time at UCL.
So what other conferences have you been to with Kat so far?
So far I've only been to the Fragile X conference in Birmingham, but I'm going to the Cornelia de Lange conference in Manchester, I think end of next month.
Oh, great.
So yeah, so I'm excited and looking forward to that as well. And
you've got a really good mentor, having Dr. Kat
Ellis,
haven't you?
and
you know, Kat's ethos and how she works. You know, it's really
definitely.
good.
Yeah, with kind of the way I've been taught how to do the assessments and sessions is by observing Kat, and I think it's priceless to obviously have loads of experience with different children, different needs, different difficulties, and I'm really grateful. Yeah.
So what are you finding, are you enjoying the best so far? Is it working with the children or working with the adults, or?
I think children. I think it's a bit more tricky just because you have to really be creative in ways that every
Lots of
child,
energy.
it's not like always have snacks and that will save you, because some children just don't care about food, but some you really need to be flexible and creative, and you can't turn around for 2 seconds because you might lose. Like it's honestly have to be very creative, but I think it's just more challenging but more exciting, I think. So working with kids,
you've got to think on your feet, haven't you?
Exactly.
Because when I work with the children, they're all different. They've all got different needs, and they've all got different behaviours, and some are verbal, some are non-verbal. And it was interesting what you were saying earlier about more research needs to be done about the non-verbal children, because I think a lot of people seem to think that non-verbal means non-intellectual, and that is so wrong sometimes, because I've worked with children who are completely non-verbal, but they can read, and you know that it's really
and they can communicate. Like you don't have to be verbal to have ways of
to have feelings, emotions, to like be able to have relationships,
and to think as well. You know, I think about how, what are they thinking about? Because they're obviously they're thinking all the time, but it's interesting to know what they're thinking.
We have to find ways of understanding to be able to read what's going on, because otherwise sort of on an ethical side of things they're massively disadvantaged, and it's so important. But I love what you say about the fact that all children are the same, because with Fragile X there's so much variation as well, and I think this is something that you've did you notice that they're like that and they're like that?
Honestly, that's the thing, that's what I said, it's so challenging, but like the heterogeneity amongst, like, because I could see a Fragile X kid today and tomorrow and they'll be completely different, like the way I'm approaching them. I can't be like, okay, so I'm going to do this and then the next time I'm going to do this. I can't be rigid, like you have to can never
you'll see similarities, but
there are definitely
in the field with trying to understand a little bit more about the variation within a group and the differences. So what might be happening is you see variation within two different groups, but the reason for that variation within that group might differ. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense. Yeah, because you've got to think about the environment as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
So you've got the genetic, then you're thinking about their environment, then you think about how's that child feeling? Are they feeling ill? Are they feeling happy? Are they feeling anxious? What's going on in that child's life at the time?
Yeah.
There's loads of different added things that can make a child behave in a different way.
And different like co-occurring difficulties or disorders that can often co-occur. So there's a lot that feed into the trials.
I love the fact you mentioned environment though, because I think so for us it's in different groups, certain environments we can predict in different groups will lead to different behaviours.
Yeah.
But that's so important because at this stage that's the bit that we can help with.
Yeah.
And the genetic stuff is really interesting and it's moving too fast for us psychologists to keep up with. But yeah, I suppose as a researcher what I'm particularly interested in is understanding all of that, so the genetics, the thinking abilities, and the environment and how all of those interact and how we might be able to make sort of simple ways of helping parents.
Wow, it's a minefield, isn't it?
It really
You've got the work cut out for you guys. Because I know for Riggy, and I'm sure a lot of Fragile X children, a lot of children with autism, well, most children with autism, all have the sensory processing disorder. And that's another separate thing. It's another layer, isn't it? So these children, they've all got different layers going on. So yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's brilliant that you're doing all of this. So tell me a little bit about the research you're doing at the moment, which I will be taking part in, of course, because I think all your research is amazing, and it is eventually going to help us parents as well.
Yeah, we hope so. Even if it's so, we have obviously there's lots of different studies out there, some which are going to be bigger than others, and some will be smaller scale. Some might feel more relevant, but whatever the study is, we hope that all families can understand, as I said, in terms of like raising the profile, that they can see the use of taking part in some way. So our particular study that we're on at the moment is trying to understand a bit more about different autistic like traits that we see in genetic syndrome. So in particular we're looking at children with Fragile X, but also, as I mentioned before, children with Cornelia de Lange syndrome, and we're comparing those groups to each other, but also to another group of autistic children and typically developing children. And we have those other two groups as what we call sort of comparison groups, so we can say whether, is it actually different from what we'd expect in typical development, and is it actually different from autism. And the reason we're looking at autistic traits in these groups is because we find, so you touched a little bit about this, probably reflects your experience of that confusion between getting the diagnosis and getting the of autism and getting the diagnosis of Fragile X, and is it this, is it that, or is it not? And there's some confusion in these groups, because a lot of these children with both of these groups on a very surface level, so we say that they hit like clinical, you can't see me do the the quote marks, like clinical cutoff scores of assessments of autism, but the reasons that they're hitting those clinical cutoff points, so the traits or the difficulties that they're raising, it differ between those two genetic syndromes to each other, but also those with what we call idiopathic autism, so those children with autism, as far as we know, who don't have a particular genetic syndrome. And there's several reasons for this, so it sort of leads to questions about whether the autistic services that are out there might be useful or appropriate for these syndrome groups or not, and that's an important question, because if we're saying on the surface level that they're the same, but actually there might be some subtle differences, and that might tell us a little bit about the heterogeneity of autism as well. So we're trying to explore that a little bit by understanding in particular the social difficulty. So you mentioned about the repetitive and no, you mentioned the sensory aspects of it. So there's sort of a theory that you can sort of put the social difficulties and the sensory and repetitive difficulties, they're sort of two different things, and we're looking at in particular those social interaction skills,
Right.
in particular.
Yeah.
So that's sort of a broad approach that we're looking at, and we're using quite exciting things. So we're trying to use eye tracking at the moment to see how they process the world around them and whether that's different from each other, and hopefully that gives us a little bit of an insight into what the world is like for them and where their strengths and weaknesses are.
Because I was talking to a parent the other day about this, because Iggy's got Fragile X syndrome, and he goes into a special school, and it's predominantly children with autism. But they have got quite a lot of differences, and Fragile X children, well, my child in particular, he mimics behaviour.
Oh, really?
But he mimics the bad as well as the good. And this is the problem. And there's children with Down syndrome in this school as well. And I found when Iggy's around the children with Down syndrome, it really helps with his social aspect, because he struggles with social aspects as well, as do a lot of children with the autism. But when he's with the Down syndrome children, he seems to get on better. It seems to work for him. And
he's using them as a model.
He uses them as a model, I suppose. And I suppose because there's differences with different autism syndromes and all of this. When Iggy's been in a class where it's predominantly autism, he's less social, because he's not modelling it. He hasn't got models because he's been in classes where they've all been quite insular and doing their own thing, which is predominantly an autism trait. Not saying that all autism children are like that either, because everyone is different. But, you know, the saying is, you've met one child with autism, you've just met one child with autism, because everyone's different, aren't they? But it is really interesting, because at the moment he's with children with Down syndrome and some with autism, but his social aspect seems to be a lot better. So it is really interesting, this, because it's like where does one trait stop and where does the other start, and it's so complex, isn't it?
I definitely know, like on a sort of clinical level, we sort of say to parents, in terms of getting diagnosis of autism, don't worry too much about it, get it, because it will open the doors. But I think it's an important question, especially I suppose if you can know this as a parent, that, you know, yes, he has a diagnosis of autism, but he might not show what you usually see in people with autism. Also acknowledging that you see a lot of variation even in autism, then that can be really useful from the school's perspective, because you know, if something's not quite working the same way, they need to know their different approach. Then they can.
Yeah, definitely. It is because the information that I've been sent by the Fragile X Society that I've given to the teachers has really helped them as well, you know, to do with the hyper-arousal. And, you know, sometimes some children don't necessarily need the same strategies that might work for Iggy. Well, for each individual child, actually, because they're all different.
There's so much variation, and I know there's some interest in seeing, in some ways, the different traits we see, because there's lots and lots of different genetic syndromes. We're only using these two, but there's lots. You know, could that explain some of the heterogeneity maybe in you know, autism? You know, there's important questions.
And then there's comorbidities, isn't there?
Yes.
Because as Iggy's getting older, he's getting more complex. You know, because so Iggy was first diagnosed with ADHD. He was very, very young then. He wasn't even 4. And to be honest, now that I've learnt a lot about things, I'm not even sure whether he has got ADHD. I think he's a sensory seeker, which can look really similar, can't it? But I'm not the professional, so maybe he has got ADHD. I don't really know. But he's definitely got Fragile X syndrome. And even though he didn't get the diagnosis of autism all them years ago when he was much younger, we're considering that he probably has autism as well. He's definitely got sensory processing disorder. And there's a lot of things that cross over and comorbidities, isn't there? And then that
it's
makes
never clear, is it?
Makes it complex again, doesn't it? But something I hadn't heard of it until today was the Cornelia de Lange. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So it's another genetic syndrome. So like Fragile X, it has its own distinct genetic cause. Again, similar to Fragile X, it also has people who have very distinct facial features, but they're going to be different from different syndromes, specific health issues, that sort of thing. But as I said, the reason that we're interested in this group is because on that surface level, they show social difficulties and hit assessment scores of autism, but the reasons that they're hitting those assessment scores or clinical cutoff scores are different from idiopathic autism. It seems to be driven more from communication difficulties, far more than you see usually.
Right.
And this is different from those with Fragile X, who's also... Fragile X syndrome has been called like the leading genetic cause of autism, but I think that's a very contentious...
Okay.
I've heard that before, but
actually.
It's up for debate. But as I said, like, there's nothing wrong with getting the diagnosis if it opens doors, as there's overlap. So, and that's why we're sort of comparing those two groups, because they both have that sort of broadly same but subtly different behaviours.
Okay.
And strengths and weaknesses as well.
Right.
Which can help us tease out and understand a little bit more about the differences and what might be sort of leading up to those differences as well.
Something we were talking about earlier on the same thread was the difference in behaviours when it's anxiety-driven behaviour.
Yeah.
Which, as you said, is more Fragile X, and then you were saying about what was the other behaviour?
Yeah, this is quoting some of Kate Woodcock's work, who did her PhD with Chris a while back, and now she's got her own lab at University of Birmingham and is doing work on understanding and trying to help with temper outbursts.
Yeah.
And a lot of her work started with looking at a group called Prader-Willi syndrome,
Right.
who have a heightened likelihood of having these temper outbursts, which afterwards, when you look at like the sort of the sequence of behaviour of what happens afterwards, they're so sorry for it. Like, they're so apologetic.
Yeah.
And it seems to suggest that this is something which is really quite uncontrollable for them.
Yeah.
But there's it's so sort of that looking at that same but differences. It's a really nice example, because when you look at Prader-Willi syndrome and Fragile X syndrome, they both syndromes, people with these syndromes often both struggle with changes in routine, which is also an autistic sort of characteristic. So again, it's another example of autistic-like behaviours, but they might be different. But although they both struggle with those situations, the behaviours that sort of follow from that differ from one another. So in Prader-Willi syndrome, if I remember correctly, I think it's mostly temper outbursts.
Yeah.
But in Fragile X, I think it looks more like social anxiety.
Yeah.
Which I know is something that
I've been really struggling with. In
Or-
the last school year with Iggy. Yeah, for sure. His anxiety was very, very high, which was then affecting his behaviour.
Yeah, actually, it might not be anxiety. Actually, I think it might be repetitive questioning in Fragile X.
Okay.
If I'm
Which
being
makes
fair.
people with Fragile X anxious.
Yeah, so people, if they're... I think people with Fragile X, if there's a change in routine, they show a lot of repetitive questions. I think that might be it. So maybe I should go back to the paper and double check. But the sort of take home point is that you might have the same situations that cause tension or anxiety within people with different syndromes, but actually how they express that sort of difficulty in their behaviours are quite different.
Okay.
And so it's two different behaviours. So on the outset, they look like it's different, but actually the root cause of it is very similar, and it's why it's really important to look at those pathways within each syndrome.
Wow, this is so interesting.
We go in quite
quite
detail.
It is really interesting, though. I find it fascinating because just looking at Iggy, he is so complex and interesting within himself.
Yeah. Let alone,
and then you're seeing so many different children, and they're all unique, aren't they? Yeah, it's really interesting. But on top of this research as well, you're also doing research about the individual parents, aren't you? Which is interesting to see is it to do with how they think, and how is it to do with any traits that the parent might have, or is it to do with the stress, or?
Do you want me to talk about it, or would you like to?
Yeah, so we so there's this like a separate kind of research project looking at mums of children with autism and also mums with the Fragile X premutation, just to see whether there are any overlapping, if like just to see like some autistic traits in both of those groups.
I'm not entirely sure that's quite what we're doing in that. I think they're two different studies. We are looking at, so this gets a bit difficult because this isn't our study per se. This is Ashita's is heading it. So it's a shame she's not here, but we're not necessarily comparing with autistic mums. We happen to be doing similar stuff within the groups, but I don't think we're going to compare.
Okay.
What we're just interested in is just seeing whether you process things in the same way as those without the premutation. So are you going to be editing?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we'll.
Okay.
I just want to be careful about
Don't
saying
worry,
we're going to compare with
Yeah.
autistic mums, because I don't want to hear like a
Yeah.
premutation and just panic and go, oh, autism, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that's quite what we're interested in. What we're interested in it's quite nice that we're giving you guys a bit of a spotlight, because I think it's really important to look at whether you guys process things differently if you have this.
Oh, definitely, yes.
So we've got like an eye tracking study, which basically looks at what you attend to, and it helps us to understand how you might be processing things out in the social world as well, and whether that's different from those without the Fragile X premutation as well.
I'm really fascinated in that. I'm obviously going to be doing this study. And I was telling you when I was doing another podcast, a parent who had Asperger's asked me if I had Asperger's as well. She said we sniff our own out, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I have, maybe I don't know. I don't know.
I think well, this is the thing, we don't know.
Yeah.
As researchers, I don't know whether Jo's done a little bit. If you are interested, she might have done a little bit on this, because she's done some questionnaire studies.
Okay.
But yeah, we're sort of trying to get a bit of a spotlight, and this is one study, it's one small study, but it's all about raising that profile up as well. Because I know that in the conference that we went to, people with the premutation had questions about themselves, and what about things in the future, and
because apparently we're prone to anxiety and depression and things like that, and we've got other health issues that could arise as we get older. But then also it's that kind of thing, well, if you've got a very challenging child, is that going to make you depressed and more anxious anyway? So do you know
that's
what?
why we compare without it's so important to have that comparison. I think probably the best comparison is having mums who have a child with a disability but not necessarily Fragile X. I think that would be the more research we get, the more momentum we can get, the bigger the studies and the more spotlight. And again, in terms of health professionals, so if you do come up with a health condition, or you say, actually I'm concerned about this, you're more likely to come across a health professional who'll know, which I think is going to take a lot of sort of responsibility for your shoulders when you've got so much.
You're absolutely right. Because at the moment I know I get a lot of information from America, like to do with being a premutation carrier of Fragile X syndrome, because America is like, they've had more money to do these things.
Oh, their research budgets are.
Exactly.
They are.
Have you ever thought about going to America? Very really fascinating, does it? Like, the amount of money they get to do stuff as well.
I don't know, their healthcare system.
No,
got lots of research, but in terms of being able to.
Yeah, we're really lucky we've got the NHS, haven't we?
I'm a big fan.
Exactly.
As someone with a chronic health condition myself.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. So.
I'm not sure whether I've got fibromyalgia, but again, a lot of us parents do suffer from autoimmune diseases as well, and it could be to do with being a carrier of Fragile X syndrome, or it could just be to do with having daily chronic stress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
absolutely.
that eventually comes out mentally or physically as well, doesn't it? Yeah. Oh, so you like hanging out with the parents, you guys. It's a big bonus of your work.
Yeah.
And it's really good because you're on about the community and meeting all the parents is so lovely, and empowering parents to be able to signpost them to the right places. Yeah. So thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
Just to say, if there's any parents out there who are ever unsure about taking part in research, give us a call. Because we want to encourage you to say, like, it's we hope we've shown that we're not scary, and in terms of research, it's really important, but two, we try and make it as successful as possible for anyone. So we'll try and pay back expenses, make travel as easy as possible. If you can't come to us, we'll come to you. We leave it, we sort of leave it in your hands whether you want to take part or not, how much you want to take part, how much you feel comfortable with your child doing. Anything is useful for us, and we just hope that we can show that it's not a scary process at all.
No, it's not at all.
A lot of the times we although we can't immediately give you something, research is a long process. From not all, I don't know if all labs do it, but we try and give things like individualised feedback reports, some of standardised assessments. So these are assessments that you might get that gives you an idea of your child's cognitive ability. So we'll call them thinking skills, so their language ability or the non-verbal ability, social skills, that sort of thing. And that's something we can release the scores on as well.
I found that really helpful actually when I seen you in Birmingham. How long ago was that now? 4 or 5 years ago I met you, Kat. But that was really helpful because back then I was still seeing other professionals of trying to figure out what was going on with Iggy. So having that as evidence was really good as well.
We have to sort of caveat, we're not clinicians, so we can't make any sort of clinical judgment or clinical advice from it, but as I said, because there is, we call standardised assessments, other clinicians should recognise them. The scores are the scores, they're objective, and we can just give those to you, and then we know how much of a fight it is, especially at the moment, to get these assessments, and if that's something that we can
the waiting lists
so we hope that we can show that there are some benefits to you in taking
and you're part. In my home now, so you do, people don't have to come to you. You quite often go to people's homes to make it easier, because like you were saying, some of our children really struggle with transitions, don't they, and the change of routine.
And I think in terms of getting representative samples and sort of breaking down barriers, it's really important, so that families who might not have a lot of money, for example, will be able to take part and basically make our research better, because we're also taking account you guys, which is really, really important, rather than perhaps the ones who can afford to do it or take the time out. So we try and break
broader,
it down.
Doesn't it? A broader research.
It makes it more representative, and hopefully brings more people into the community as well. So
definitely.
So that's what. Just thanks from us, Lisa, for being able to sort of be able to chat a little bit about what we do. And
I think it's great. I think you're both doing a wonderful job. Do you want to leave an email behind on this podcast and a telephone number or something like that, where people could get in touch with you if they're wanting to be on board and join in with the research? Would that be handy?
Shall I take your telephone number, your office number?
That might change. Let's keep to email. So you can email me at k.ellis, so ELLIS at ucl.ac.uk, or I'm going to let Malvina spell out her name.
So mine is m.dziwis@ucl.ac.uk.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And please continue the wonderful work that you both do. It really does support us parents, it really does. And it's just great to keep in touch with you guys and seeing you at the Fragile X conference as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for taking the time to join me today. To find out more about what I do, visit www.specialworldtraining.com and follow us on our Facebook page, Special World Training, Instagram and LinkedIn. I believe knowledge is power and strength is in numbers. And if more people get involved in our special world, we can all make our world a better place. Join me next week for more amazing stories from the good, the bad and the ugly.